Hello again, and welcome to Tommy Travers' rugby predictions. I'm going to give a few predictions now on the games on the weekend, and I have a guest with me today. He was with me last year and the year before, or last year anyway, doing rugby recordings, and he's a top man about rugby, and he's from Wales, and I worked with him before, and his name is John White. So, welcome, John, to this piece of my show. Hopefully, we can get through a few predictions here.
Grant, thanks for having me on, Tommy. Always a pleasure.
No bother. Um, we're. I think the first game, John, I'm going to go with is Ireland against Tonga, which is on next Saturday.
Yeah, this is coming up on the 16th at
Yeah,
8 o'clock Irish time,
yeah,
and it's really interesting because I feel like we haven't seen a lot of Tonga yet. They haven't played. They really haven't played that many games in the last few years, and they have a lot of players back with the new eligibility rules change. So, for people who don't know, Um, World Rugby has changed the laws so that if you were capped for one nation several years ago, you can now declare for another nation, but that second nation has to be your country of birth or where your parents or grandparents come from. And Tonga have a lot of former All Blacks coming into their side. People like Fekatoa, Charles Piatau. Um, they are going to make a massive difference, but we really, I mean, they didn't play last weekend either.
yeah.
So we don't really have any idea what to expect, so, which makes it very exciting for me as a neutral. Um, I
And
would still expect Ireland to win that game. We don't have lineups at the time of recording now, but I would still, I think it could be a very bruising physical game for Ireland, but I do expect them to win and probably win with a bonus point.
Yeah, I am a bit worried about this game, John, because last weekend's game, while it started off bad, they lost the try in the first minute or first few minutes, but then they became good. But this Tongan team is a better team than the team that were playing last week. And as you said there, after being listening to a bit of an interview there with a girl from TV3 about the All Blacks, or sorry, Tonga, and she's after been speaking to this guy, and he's after saying exactly the same as what you said about these fellas from the All Blacks that's on it, which is, you know what I mean? It's no bad thing to have players from the All Blacks playing for you. So they will really put it up to Ireland. And the one thing that's worrying me, John, is, and I said this before the last game as well, about Johnny Sexton or any of the players getting a bad knock and taking them out. Now, especially Johnny Sexton. Now, I know we have other lads to come in, but the problem with Johnny Sexton is that he hasn't really played since last March. He played for 60 minutes last weekend, but that's the only match sharpness he has. And they're going to try and get a bit of more sharpness into him. Hopefully, that to be able to get him without him getting injured. Because you know the way it goes, if he gets injured, everyone will say then, they should have taken him off. Do you know what I mean? So Farrell is in a catch 22 situation, really. It's very awkward for him, you know what I mean? Because he wants to leave him there to get a bit of sharpness, and he's also afraid then of him getting a knock, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, it's a catch 22. Um, but it's especially the issue. This wasn't an issue against Romania, which was the team that was played on the weekend. I think on the weekend just gone. I
Yeah,
think they probably could have gotten away without playing him there. But like you
yeah.
said, they kind of want to get some match fitness into him. Um, the Tonga game, I think Tonga are just such an unknown quantity. at the moment. I'd be amazed if they won. I'd be amazed if they got a losing bonus point. I
Yeah,
do think Ireland will run away with it, but it is going to be a more physical game than Romania. Um, if I mean, if Andy Farrell decides not to start Sexton and things go badly wrong, then um, it's seen as the most insane decision he could have possibly made. But
exactly.
I would still I think I think Van der Fleer could probably start at fly half for Ireland and they'll win that game. I don't mean that to be disrespectful.
I know, I
I
know
just
you
think
don't.
I just think that the team is so strong, and I just don't think I think you will see competitive like 40, 50 minutes from Tonga. I think they will drop off quite quickly in the second half, and it's much the same as Romania did. The floodgates will open around the 50, 60 minute mark.
Yeah, hopefully, anyway,
Yeah, hopefully
because
for you. I personally, I'd love
we
to see
don't.
Tonga win. It would be great
Oh
for the
yeah, of
sport,
course,
but
Sean, you would. Yeah, I
but
know
it's
because.
yeah.
But for us, like, because we're then going in, as you well know, John, into the South Africa match. And do you know what I mean? You don't want to be going into that match looking for anything. Now, hopefully, Ireland can still win it, but it's going to be a big ask. Now, I only seen South Africa, seen some of their match with against Scotland. And, they look awesome now. So whether they're able to keep it going or not, but they're definitely one of the top rugby sides, John, that could win it, aren't they? You know what I mean? They're up there with France, the All Blacks, and like they're saying Ireland is number one. Now I was saying on Liffey Sound there with the lads when we were all talking about sport the last few weeks that do you know what I mean? I don't really take much notice of that, John. Ireland at number one, and I'm going to tell you why. When you go into the bookies, these other teams are all ahead of Ireland, John, in the bookies. Ireland is about fourth, I think, in the bookies. You know what I mean? And that's where I think you have to look for to get a proper uh, build up or proper idea of what's really going on. You know what I mean? All these stats things, they're at to being worked out, John, over a number of results going back the last year or two, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I don't
but
know what you think about
I
that.
I d- I do think Ireland can win it, and I think Ireland could win the whole tournament quite. Um, I just think that
I'm
they've
waiting for
beaten.
a vote, John.
No, I mean, well, yeah, there is a but
Yeah.
the if they meet the All Blacks in the quarterfinals, they win that game. I think. Be pretty shocking to see the All Blacks go out in the quarterfinals, but I think Ireland beat them in the quarters. If Ireland meet France in the quarters, I don't know. I
Yeah.
think home advantage has been massive in Ireland and France games in the last few years. And people will point to, oh well, we beat them in the Six Nations. Well, we beat them in the Six Nations in Dublin. Um, and France are just they're just looking a league above at the moment.
Well,
Maybe not a league above Ireland, but a league above
well,
everyone else.
Well, last Friday, John, I went down to Lucan. Now, I was a bit late going down, and I couldn't find them where they were doing the disco part of it with Kelly, And I looked at the fireworks display, and after that, then I decided I'd go into Kenny's for to have a look at the second half. And I went in to have a look at the second half, and like they were unbelievable. Like what you call them, France, weren't they in that match? Now,
Yeah, I mean the first half was a bit closer.
yeah,
Um,
I only seen a little bit of the first half, seen a little bit of it in the bookies, but it's no use. I started seeing the second half. I didn't really see the first half, but like, geez, looking at France, they were very good. Like it takes a good team to beat the All Blacks. I know they're probably not as good as they were, but they're still a terrible, dangerous team, John. They could win the competition. Like you couldn't say that they couldn't win it. She couldn't. Do you
No,
know? I know they'll be down the pecking order a bit, but at the same time, if they won it, no one would be, they wouldn't be falling on the ground saying, "Oh, geez, that's unbelievable." Like, sure, they wouldn't
no,
because,
I think France have a slightly easier way to the final than Ireland as well. Like
oh
the
yeah,
thing is
Ireland,
now the way the group falls now for France is fantastic. They wanted the All Blacks up first. They requested the All Blacks as their first game,
oh, did they, right?
is their right as hosts, yeah.
All right,
And
I didn't know that. Yeah,
and now who they have now? They have Uruguay up. We're recording this on Wednesday, so they have Uruguay up tomorrow night, Thursday the 14th at 8. They will win that game. They've already put
yeah,
their team out. It's definitely their bees, but they will win that match.
yeah,
Um, New Zealand have Namibia. Like, I will, if even though it's their own World Cup, if there are any matches that I'm likely to miss, and I intend to watch all of them. I have watched all of them so far. Um,
great.
if I can afford to not see any teams matches in the groups, it's probably going to be France now for the rest because I think they're going to steamroller the rest of the group. I want to watch New Zealand and see how New Zealand reacts to that loss against France.
Yeah,
Because now New Zealand have lost twice in a row, something that they don't do very often. Yes, one was a warm-up match against South Africa, and who, as you
who are a
mentioned,
great
look
team.
absolutely amazing. Yeah, yeah. But who
Yeah,
New Zealand have beaten this year already, and then to lose to them, what was it? It was like 35-7 or something. It was a big loss.
yeah,
Um, how are they going to react in the rest of the group? Um, Italy are in their group. Okay, we might not be expecting Italy to do so much, but um,
they're
you
coming up
know,
a little bit, aren't they? You know
oh,
what I
they're really
mean?
improving. They're
Yeah,
really, really improving. I mean,
yeah,
they beat Namibia. It's very hard to tell when Italy play someone first up and they're a small team like Namibia. It's very hard to judge where they're at. Um,
yeah,
we'll have a better idea as time goes on. So I mean, they are playing. I think Italy's next game is also Uruguay, but that's not till next week. Once we'll see Uruguay
right.
play France, and then we'll see Uruguay play Italy, and then we'll have a better idea of kind of like where Italy, in terms of how they're lining up against France in that
Yeah.
idea. But I still
See,
expect New Zealand to come second in that group. It's just how much hard work is it? And then do Ireland beat South Africa? If Ireland don't beat South Africa, I think Ireland go out in the quarterfinal against France. I think France are just
well,
they look
yeah,
destined for it,
well, the other thing about that then is, John, to be playing Scotland, and while Scotland didn't look good against South Africa, like Ireland and Scotland now, could be a dicey game enough too. You just don't know what's going to happen. You don't.
No, I mean,
You
like
should be able to
Scotland.
beat them, but
Yeah, Scotland are better than they looked in the match
they
against
are
South Africa. They kind of
definitely.
like. I don't really. I'm. Obviously, Gregor Townsend and Finn Russell have forgotten more about rugby than I'll ever know. But it felt watching it that their tactics were. I don't know. So South Africa has this really aggressive rush defense. It's. I mean, everyone knows it now. It's very famous. They kind of they have three men who rush up outside of the ruck, and then they have someone whose job is to charge down and take out the player who's known as the second receiver, who is further down the attacking line and
Right.
is sort of deciding where the attack is going to go. If the ball gets to the second receiver, you've normally because you could ship it onto a prop, you could shift it off to a forward, and they're going to run it up, or maybe they offload or whatever. If it goes to the second receiver, then you probably have some kind of plan. In terms of like you have a set move, you want to kick it downfield, you want to try and walk or run outside the man and get an offload or something like that. You have an idea of an attacking move that you're doing that requires the second receiver.
Yeah.
Um, South Africa's defense is just essentially entirely designed around stopping the ball from even getting to the second receiver. And if it gets to the second receiver, then you are absolutely mullering them into the ground, so that the next time they are going to be taking a ball, they have in the back of their mind, I'm about to get hit right now, and that forces knock-ons, that forces mistakes because they have doubt in the player's mind. So South Africa's defense is not entirely, but it's mostly designed around stopping the ball getting wide to this player, who's normally your
Yeah.
number 12, sometimes your number 10 in different teams. And Scotland rely very heavily in their attack on getting the ball to that um
Okay.
to that player, their second
Yeah.
receiver. Um, there are ways you can get around that, and Ireland is very well set up. Ireland's attack is very well set up to get around those. You get around it by offloading, by presenting different options to the first receiver, by short kicks, grubbers or Gary Owens, just to get behind the line to turn the
Right.
defenders around. What that does is it doesn't just put the ball into space, but it also puts the ball in a place where the defenders are less likely to rush up at full speed if they think you might kick behind it. They want to hedge their bets.
Right.
So Ireland's attack is really well set up to go against that. Now, now that's just South Africa's defense. Like the attack is also fantastic. It's not as impressive as their defense. Um, it's just if you can live with them for 80 minutes, they're
Yeah.
very good fitness. They
Oh,
have, as you
Jesus.
said before, they've a lot of forwards to bring on off the bench.
Yeah.
Um, it's a huge ask for anyone,
Now,
and you need a certain team, a certain type of team to beat them. I don't
yeah.
know if Ireland can. I think, well, no. Let me say, Ireland 100% can beat them. Whether they will, I don't know. But I
Yeah.
think if
It's
you
very
play a
hard. A
match,
hard game to call.
yeah, you play that match 20 times, Ireland probably wins like somewhere, like probably 10 of them, like eight of those matches. I don't know. It's very hard to tell.
Yeah. John, we better mention your team, Wales, you know what I mean? Because we're talking about Ireland and all the teams that's in Ireland's group. We better give your team, Wales, a mention. I only seen very little of the game, John, the other night, but they still won, which is a great, you know what I mean? You have to say, John, Wales always they're a great rugby team, and I don't know how they're actually playing it because I didn't see that match, but they still won it, and they could have been saying it yet. Like any time, I don't know whether there's any chance of them meeting Ireland, but Ireland got done a few times when they met Wales, didn't they? A few World Cups before I can remember.
Yeah, you're thinking of the quarterfinal in 2011.
Yeah,
Now, if Wales and Ireland did meet, it would be much later on. It would be either
yeah.
in the semi-finals or, uh, God forbid, a final.
Oh,
Um,
Jesus, tonight.
yeah,
Oh, that'd be.
look, it's not even worth imagining. But yeah, so obviously, so Ireland, France, South Africa, Scotland, the All Blacks, Italy are all on the left hand side of the draw. They're in groups A
Yeah,
and B,
yeah.
so they will meet each other in the quarters. Wales, Australia, Fiji, Georgia, England,
England, yeah,
Argentina are all on the other side in groups C and D. So they are the ones that are likely to meet each other in the
yeah,
quarters. Um, so yeah, Wales played Fiji on Sunday. I don't think it's that hyperbolic to say that it was probably the most entertaining game in the round. If people want to go back and watch a match that isn't the Ireland Romania game, which still it was, even though that was a blowout, I really enjoyed watching that game. It's especially if you're a big fan of Bundy Aki as I am.
yeah. Oh, yeah,
Oh,
right.
he was fantastic. It's one of the best games I've ever
He's so
witnessed.
man, isn't he, John?
But if you like watching Bundy Aki, then you'll generally like watching centre play, and the centre play in Wales Fiji was absolutely fantastic. It was it was great. I mean, the Welsh. I mean, the defending was pretty bad. The defending in the midfield was not great from either team, but the attack
Right.
was really entertaining. Um, and it's going to be hard. I think we should probably just mention it quickly. A lot of people have been saying that the refereeing in that game was subpar, um, and
Right.
it's a difficult one. Don't really like criticizing referees so much, but I think there were a few questionable decisions in it.
Right.
Especially, I think you could. I'm so both teams had a yellow card. I think the Fiji yellow card for bringing down a rolling maul heading towards their line. Yeah, you can't really have too many complaints about that. Wales's yellow card was for an absolutely ridiculous penalty that I think he committed like three penalties at once. I think he went. Did he go off feet? He came in at the side and he took out the number 9. Like, yeah, it was pretty bad. So he deserved a yellow for that. Now, Wales's defending on their own line was cynical at times. It wasn't always cynical, but it was cynical at times, and I think there should have been at least another yellow card. I don't think you could have complained too much if Wales had had three yellow cards in the whole match. Um, Although I think the the breakdown was pretty messy the entire time. There were a lot of going off feet from both sides, and yeah. But aside from that, it was a fantastic game, and it really, I mean, whichever group, because Wales are always in a group with either Australia or Fiji or both, and it's a really good group now. Like, it's okay, yeah, the teams are lower ranked. There's been a lot made of how unfair it is that the best teams are on the left side and have to play each other to get out of the quarters, and there's no doubt that it is sort of second class pools over on C and D, but they are very entertaining pools. And I think C, well, okay, maybe the England Argentina group not so much, but Australia, Wales, Fiji, one of those teams is not getting through. This weekend, Fiji play Australia. If you only have time this weekend to watch one game,
Put
that
that
is on
down.
Sunday at 4:45.
Right.
That is going to be the game of the weekend. I would say. I
Well,
don't think any other game is going to come close.
yeah.
Match.
Well, one of the lads that reads the news here, he was interviewing someone about the World Cup, and actually, he was just saying to them he had drawn uh, Australia in the, the way they have these draws, John, where you get a team, you put so much money in, and you get a team, and the winner normally takes it all, or they might have winner and the finalists. The chapter reads the news now on RTE. He was just saying that he got Australia. Like Australia, John, as you well know, I remember they played Ireland here. You wouldn't remember it now, John. It's going back to '91, and actually, we were talking about it on Liffey Sound there in the sport on Saturday. And didn't Ireland get a try coming very near the end of the match? And they went into the lead. I think a fella by the name of Hamilton God. I'm not certain now about his name, but God anyway. And Ireland went into the lead. But Australia came back, John, and got the winner and won it. So, they're a very dangerous team. I think a fella by the name of Campese was with Australia that time.
Oh, David Campese,
David Campese,
I
exactly.
mean, I know you said it was in the early '90s, but you are
91,
showing
John, yeah.
you're showing the age with pulling David Campese out as the example there. Is,
Well, I actually, John, was in a nightclub in Dublin that I used to go to at the time, and the name of the nightclub was Bad Bob's. And actually, he was actually in there. He was there the night after. I think it was, well, I don't know whether it was the next week or not, but I did see him in there. Now, I didn't get to undo, but I did see him in there. So,
well, this is a very different Australia team now. In that Australia team that you're talking about in '91 was full of experience, and
yeah,
this Australia team is incredibly young. They might be, off the top of my head, they might be the youngest average aged team in the World Cup.
all right.
So Eddie Jones, who was the head coach of England, was fired by the RFU and was hired by Rugby Australia to be their new head coach months before, or a year before the World Cup started. Um, he has kind of gone on the record saying, well, look at his actions.
Well,
He's
he's fairly
he's essentially,
controversial, isn't he?
yeah, he's very controversial. But
Yeah.
what if you look at his actions? What he's done is he's essentially culled the team, and there are very few senior players remaining, and he is putting his faith in youth. Now,
yeah,
that probably won't pay dividends this World Cup, but moving forward in future cycles, it's going to be fantastic. Like they are hosting a World Cup they have the World Cup in 2027, I think.
right.
I think they're targeting that World Cup.
Probably,
That's not
yeah.
to say they won't get out the group, they won't do
Oh,
well. I just think it's very unlikely they're going to win.
yeah,
And if you look at Wales against Fiji, um, Dan Bigger in that match was really influential. You know, he has over 100 caps. There were times when the players were getting a bit, because when you play Fiji or you play a side like Fiji, you have all of these people running rings around you, offloading, playing Harlem Globetrotters rugby, and it's very easy to get sucked into playing in that style.
yeah,
And there were moments in that match where Dan Bigger is screaming at his players, saying, "Keep your heads on, do this, get the ball off the park, just do the simple things." And when Dan Bigger went off, things started to really fall apart for Wales because there wasn't someone um,
right,
saying those things and keeping everyone grounded. I don't think Australia has that presence in their team right now,
yeah.
and I think that is going to be I think it was Nick
Ah, yeah,
White.
it's
I don't
major
Nick
thing.
maybe Nick White, but I in the back of my mind, I think he might be injured. I didn't check that before we came on, so I don't know if he's likely to be playing in that game.
Oh, yeah,
And if Fiji score twice quickly, like they did against Wales, I think they could beat Australia. And
right.
then you are into a very interesting situation with does Wales beat Australia? And if Wales lose to Australia, it's going to be down to points difference in that group, and Wales aren't really a big high scoring team, so
Yeah.
that could count against them.
England then, John, we just to finish up because we better finish up because we have to put this up, haven't we? What was I going to say to you? England before the went like were getting dreadful criticism, and then they went out. I seen some of that match against Argentina, and Jesus, they absolutely destroyed Argentina. Now I know it was nearly all drop goals, but it doesn't matter how you win. It's winning that counts, I think, isn't it? They did win fairly well. Like Argentina weren't really in it, and before the match, Argentina, they were given a bit of a chance in that, weren't they?
Yeah, and also it's worth saying that that scoreline looks a bit nicer for Argentina because they scored a converted try
Mm,
right towards the end.
yeah,
Yeah, that was 27 points. Three of them were drop goals by George Ford, so that would be six penalties. Um, yeah, not a try scored. 27 points from George Ford. It was not the most glamorous, fantastic match you'll ever see in your life, but I think just as a masterclass for how to play the position,
wasn't it?
it was
The
absolutely
drop goals
fantastic to
were
watch.
unbelievable, like, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, there was one he knocked over from from the halfway line, and it looked like it had
Jesus.
another 5 to 10 meters on it. It was, and he is not a big man. You know, it's technique,
Right,
and he does have a lot of power, but like it's the technique that's impressive there.
right, okay.
Really, really fantastic. And then you hear interviews with him afterwards, and they're like, "What were you thinking?" And he was like, "Oh, the points would be nice." Just
Points would be
he's
nice, yeah.
yeah,
Pretty
he's
sure they are nice. Three every time it goes over the bar. It's
well,
not
exactly.
bad.
Especially because they got one drop goal, and then I don't know if it was the second or the third one. I think it was the second one. They got in a really good try scoring position, and I think they went one, maybe two phases, and then quickly just slotted over. And that, as a play, that's really um, the psychological impact of that is massive for
Yeah,
both the attacking and the attackers and the
that's
defenders, because
terrific.
you
Like,
can't do anything about that as a defender really, other than don't let them get into your half, and that's pretty. That's unless you are South Africa 4 years ago, that's pretty impossible.
well, we won a Grand Slam, John, and we hadn't won it from, I think we hadn't won it from 1948. I think was the first Grand Slam, and we got this one, and it was against, I think it was against Wales, and Ron O'Gara got it, the um, drop goal, you know. And
Yeah,
like
this.
the pressure on Ron O'Gara taking that kick, like it must have been absolutely atrocious. But over it went, and it won it for them, you know. So it just shows you, like, the drop goals. Like it's a great way. It's a great way to win it, you know, with a drop goal.
I mean,
You know,
that's exactly it. It's a great way to win it.
yeah,
And that's
it is.
why we don't really see a lot of drop goals outside of, you don't really see them in the Six Nations even. You kind of only, nowadays, you only really see them at World Cups.
Now they did concede a penalty in that match, and I don't know whether it was Ron O'Gara or not that done it, but Wales got the penalty, like, and I forget now who took it, but the ball looked to be going over the bar, like, and that was Ireland beating if it went over, and it just veered off and went wide, you know. So that's how close it was to winning the Grand Slam, you know. So all the
I don't
matches,
remember that now. That was what, I think that was 2009, was it? So what,
yeah,
that
I think it
probably
was 2009.
Stephen Jones maybe would have probably been the fly
Might
half.
have been Stephen Jones, yeah. But I remember them doing a documentary about it, and I think Ron O'Gara, don't know what he done, but whatever way he done anyway, and he was saying then, like, afterwards, because you know the way when the penalty is at the going wide, you can say all these things. I don't know what the player was thinking about doing that, and I think it was him doing it. Now, not 100%, but you can say all these things, John, when you're after winning, because it doesn't matter. If you're after losing, like, you wouldn't be saying that, you know.
Well,
John, we
exactly.
better just finish up this because we have to pull it up, haven't we?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I'll just say that I think that group, um, that last group, then England, Argentina are the most likely to go through.
Right.
Now, uh, maybe I could see Samoa doing it as well. They didn't play on the weekend, and the last thing we know about Samoa is that they almost beat Ireland in the final warm-up game. Um,
That's right.
it's so they are also very similar to Tonga. They are a unknown quantity at this point.
Well,
Now,
I
yeah.
Go ahead. No, I actually thought, John, in that match, coming near the end of that match, that last warm up match with Samoa, that they were going to win it because their tails were really up. Now, Ireland, I know, hadn't got their full team, but they've had to bring on all the players for to try and hold it. And I'll tell you one thing, it was very, very close. You were right there. It was very close. Like, looking at Samoa, at their body language and all, they were saying, I'd say they were saying all on the pitch, lads, look at, we have this, come on. Like, they really put Ireland to the sword, didn't they? Right up to the last kick. Do you know, it was touch and go, and Ireland could have got beaten in it. It was that class. Now, that close. Now, lucky enough, they held out and they won it. Do you know, I wanted to see them win it. But I'm only just saying what you were after saying. Yeah, right. It was very, very dicey,
Now,
wasn't it?
yeah, I mean it was, and
Was. You have to be
going
honest
into the
about it.
tournament before the England Argentina game, people were saying, people saying there's a real chance that Argentina and Samoa go through.
Yeah,
Now, England having won against Argentina, it's almost certain that they're going through now, and they're probably
I
going
think
to
so.
top. They're probably going to top their group, yeah. So, yeah, I think it'd be quite. Now they have Japan. Japan are not the team they were 4 years ago. Um, they haven't had a very good cycle, and they play this weekend, so we'll see what happens in that match. But I would
Well,
expect England to win,
yeah.
and yeah.
I was going to say it to you, John, actually, about 10, 15 minutes ago, and it went down with my head about Japan the last time, about how good they were the last time, because I can remember that myself and Pádraig McGarrigle talking about that, and one of the lads on the phone, can't think of his name now, he's good on rugby. He was saying we were talking about Japan and how good they were. They were very good in that last World Cup 4 years ago. You think they're starting to go off a bit now, John? Are they?
Yeah, I think they're unlikely to get out of the group. But
Right.
well, they played Chile, and it was again. I think this is Chile's first World Cup, so they beat them quite handily, and we didn't really learn much from them there. We'll know more having seen them in this England game. I expect England to beat them, though. I don't think they'll get out the group. More telling is going to be when Samoa, who are playing Chile this week,
Right.
Argentina are off, and with the Samoa Argentina game now is the big one to see who goes out of the group with England.
Yeah. The pressure is really going to be on Argentina and that group, aren't it?
Definitely, and we know what
Oh,
happens when Argentina are under pressure. They normally get red cards,
yeah,
unfortunately.
that's
Um,
the problem they see, John, isn't it? When you get yourself into a bad position, and then like if you start getting red cards, that's definitely the more than likely the end of you then, isn't it?
yeah, I mean
Mm.
their discipline has not been very good in the last year. It hasn't been very good in the last 2 years. Um, Obviously, there was a yellow card offence that some people thought could have been a red in their match against England. To be honest, I thought it was okay as a yellow. And overall in that match, they were even though they gave away quite a few penalties, like I didn't feel
Yeah,
like their play was too cynical or too dangerous. It was normally just technical fouls. And
right.
so um, I think yeah, it's going to come down. I think Samoa could beat them, but again, we haven't seen them play yet. Let's
No,
see how
no,
Samoa go against Chile,
this is
and we take it from there.
it's early days yet. Yeah, I think, John, we wrap it up at that, if you're happy with that.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me
Yeah.
on.
Oh, yeah, no bother at all. Thanks very much, John, for coming on and for all your expert knowledge there. I think we're after covering most of the teams anyway that we think are going to have a chance in this. So thanks very much for all your expert advice as ever.